some people don't like that. They think that they're supposed to be able to be a 300-pound monster bodybuilder and still feel great all the time, and still like this constant. And I know some people have legitimate grievances, so I'm not talking about you, but this sort of weird thing where everyone complains about their digestion constantly. Like, what do you think is supposed to happen? Eat 6-7 meals a day of like veggies and rice and steak. Like, yeah, just tolerate it. It's just another 15 years straight. You'll be fine.
Well, we could just say, listen, this episode is coming out while we weren't able to record, and we're not going to really promise you much. So we're going to keep the bar real low. If you enjoy it, then that's just
Dusty was in charge of this episode, and here's where we are.
This is all going on the intro, Scott.
Okay. You're good.
Okay.
Oh, good stuff.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to It's Just Bodybuilding. Myself, Big Ron Partlow, and I'm here with Dusty Hanshaw and the producer, Scott McNally. Remember to like, share, subscribe, comment, and
ring the bell.
Right. And remember, IamMutant.com supporting the show. So we support them. 20% off with Dusty 20 and 20% off with Big Ron 20. IamMutant.com. Get your ISO surge, get your all in, and everyone get on the gear. How's it going, Scott? Do we have a lead topic here?
Nope.
I know this is a very questionable episode.
No, we got a bunch of stuff. We do. And there's very little organization. Well, we do have our rough organization. We've got our questions. Dusty's got some cool topics. And we have some over-unders that Dusty's prepared at the end.
Excellent.
Oh, and we do have a good, like, real uplifting ending question.
Right.
But we don't have something that's like a big grabber. So we're going to do our best with this.
This is what we're going to call between us. We won't tell the people. We're just going to call this a filler episode for when you go away on vacation.
Okay.
We don't want them to know. We don't want them to know.
But we won't tell them.
No, I'm away.
You're going to sit on this for a couple weeks, and then you're going to release it while you're not even around.
Exactly.
And
but we won't tell them.
And they're just going to think, oh, we got a new episode.
Yeah.
And then they're going to wonder, that episode was a little vacuous.
Yeah. It
didn't have
the best,
anything.
You know?
Yeah.
It wasn't like a lot of forward movement.
Yeah. A lot of mumbling.
This is a plot development episode, you know, a character development episode.
It's one of those setup, right? Yeah, it's one of those episodes. I get it. I get it.
That's awesome.
Okay. So
Dusty had topics, so he did have a few good ones.
Dusty had some stuff.
Yes. So look at it. I feel like I'm the organized one. This is weird.
We didn't even screen these.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going with it. So here,
it's live.
What's your favorite No, wait, never mind. What's the most common missing ingredient of a athlete looking to get bigger?
That's a good one.
How would I word this? The
Bluntly.
Ability to tolerate being very uncomfortable in a lot of different ways for a long period of time. Some people can't. Some people don't like that. They think that they're supposed to be able to be a 300-pound monster bodybuilder and still feel great all the time, and still like this constant. And I know some people have legitimate grievances, so I'm not talking about you, but this sort of weird thing where everyone complains about their digestion constantly. Like, what do you think is supposed to happen? Eat 6-7 meals a day of like veggies and rice and steak. Like, yeah, just tolerate it. It's just another 15 years straight. You'll be fine.
It's no big deal.
You know, I don't know what's wrong. My belly I had a little bit of distension today.
Bloating,
You're 275 pounds. You had 2 cups of oatmeal with egg whites and a banana and a scoop of protein for breakfast, and you drank a liter of water. Yeah, your belly's sticking out.
Yeah.
Welcome to the next decade of your life.
It's probably just the Splenda.
Yeah, it must be the sweetener. Oh, I think the sweetener's bloating me.
I'm just happy that I've set Rod off and we're 1 minute into the show.
Oh, yeah. He's good.
Get used to it.
Great. You know what's funny, Ron, is the other day we went out to eat and I ordered one of those tomahawk steaks with all the sides and everything. And I get to where I'm satisfied. And I immediately call the waiter and I'm like, take this. And he takes it away. And I was like, I spent 15 years of my life uncomfortable. I don't do that anymore. So literally the moment I'm satisfied, not even full, satisfied, I remove food from being in front of me because I will keep eating and then I'll be uncomfortable and I don't want to feel that anymore. You described that like a week or two ago and I was like, oh, I don't want to know what Ron felt. I haven't felt that literally in years.
Yeah.
So that's like the greatest part of being done is I'm like, I don't know how much I ate, but I know I was satisfied and I don't want any more. Get it away from me.
I did something. We were eating out with a bunch of people, and I got to that point, and I just so happened there were like 5 fries left on my plate, and I thought to myself, well, do I eat the fries because I paid for them? And I was like, you know what? I just realized that I felt really full, so I'm going to be the mature adult, and I'm going to leave those fries on the plate just as like a statement to myself, right? And then, of course, someone at the table goes, aren't you going to eat those? And I go, no, only fat people finish their fries. I'm lean. I'm ripped. I don't finish my fries. We don't finish
those.
We leave a few on the plate just as a statement to the rest of the world.
Yeah. I don't need that.
How about this one? How about this one? I feel like a lot of the newer guys, and this is something we talk about a lot of the newer guys, the missing ingredient is not training hard enough.
Of course.
You know, we've said that many times.
I know we have. But I do see a lot of young guys out there getting after it. There's some great, like, you know what I mean? But I think that there are maybe a larger portion of people who don't quite realize I think it's maybe the consistency that might be a problem. I think most people can train really hard, but it kind of comes out when they train with a friend or when they feel really good. It's the days that you got a shit day at work and you're tired and you got to go to the gym and you got to pull that workout out of your ass and you still kill it. Yeah. And you still smash sets and people in the gym are like, man, you train hard today. That's what training hard is. It's when times are when it's, you know what I mean? It's a consistency. That's the difference. Yep. A lot of guys train hard. Like everyone I've ever trained with trained pretty hard, man. They all came, trained with me. But whether they can do that every workout after that is different.
I remember Fuad saying something similar to that early on when he was podcasting, saying if somebody can come out and train with him and prove to them that the person trains hard. They'll maybe take 2 scoops of pre-workout and get all amped up and get into it, and they'll train hard. But he was like, can you do that every time you train for the next 10 years? Because that's really what it takes. So let me ask you guys a follow-up or a question then. Dusty, how can we help people today who may need to train harder? How can, instead of us just bashing on them and be like, you suck, you don't train hard enough, get back to the gym. What can we tell them that may be helpful?
I think what's tricky, and I've found this with online training, is I've never had someone send me a set that they thought wasn't hard enough early on. I've had them send me sets later where they look and go, oh man, once I looked at that, there were a couple left. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it is a little bit of a gray area. The answer that I can give, which again is really up to their mind, is understanding that point where the discomfort starts during a set, when it's really uncomfortable, that's when the set begins for advancement. You need to get 2, 3, 5 more reps from that point. And understand also, and I think Ron was actually the one that coined this. I've said it so much that I think I've stolen it, but it wasn't me. Is that intensity is something that progresses over time also. If you look earlier in your career, Ron, when you were first starting, you were an animal right out of high school. You trained hard. But how did that look compared to your hard training 10 years later? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Effort doesn't, your effort can be maxed. You can have the effort knob cranked and there can be, a lot of wasted energy going in the wrong directions, poor form, an execution isn't there, you know what I mean? That sort of stuff. So, just because effort's cranked doesn't mean that you're getting the most out of your workouts in that way, So
I think
I
the
agree.
biggest thing is to ask yourself. I mean, truthfully, ask yourself at the end of the workout if there's anything left, or after. I shouldn't have the end of the workout, after end of a set, because you can also save a workout by asking yourself throughout it. It's like dieting. I never understand somebody who screws up meal 2, so they decide the day is garbage. I'm like, no, meal 3 can be right.
Yeah.
Well, same thing. If you have a bad set in the gym, it's important that you note it. You're like, oh, I left some on the table there or whatever. You can't get that set back, but you have the rest of the workout. Crank it back up, finish, And I know everyone likes to bag on guys videoing in the gym. I think that's ridiculous because you will see a lot when you watch yourself train. All I ask is you don't be an asshole about where you put your phone and disrupt everyone else. But if you're in a situation where you can make sure it's not bothering anyone, looking back at your videos really, really helps. I mean, and I say this all the way down to the end of my career when I thought I was this polished executioner of unbelievable workouts. There were a few times that I felt my form going, so I stopped the set and I looked at the video and I was like, my form was fine.
Yeah.
That was in my head.
Yeah.
I left a couple reps there, and I'm glad I did. I thought I was being safe, but it is good to see that. And the only reason I was recording it was for social media. I looked, I was like, ooh. And of course, so I just turn around and put that in my post. Thought this was a flawless set. It wasn't. Anyway, so here it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It's a great tool that we can watch ours. I mean, I wish I could have filmed some sets back in 1990 and seen my form.
Yeah. Sure.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You don't need to film every set, though. That's our point.
Yeah, no. So I have some more. I'm just going to run this until you stop me, Scott, like I'm doing the show.
All right. That's great. Look at that. Ron.
Okay, you guys both have year-round clients. At what point do you at what point during a prep, say you and I start today, I'm in decent shape and I'm competing a year from today. At what point do you say, okay, now you are just on what I tell you to eat? No freedom at all versus do you guys do treat meals every week? If I'm again in pretty good shape, like how does that work?
What would an Olympia level coach do, Ron?
There's only one on the show, actually. Right. So, Ron, what would you do?
Well, I remember when I got my diet from Chad. He was like, here's your off-season diet. I want you to stick to this 90%. And he goes, so to me, that means, he goes 80 to 90%. He goes, so like out of every 10 meals, 8 or 9 of them are right off this plan. And then maybe, so that's a couple meals a week that you're going off plan. Mm-hmm. And he goes, you're a big guy, you're a big super heavyweight. I don't give a shit what you eat when you go off plan.
Right.
Like I couldn't care less. Eat a lot. That's the point, So that was like factored in, was like, here is a lot of food, be very consistent, but you got freedom you're a big dude, go eat, Mm-hmm. So I always felt like that was off season to me, I think that some guys, I think some people at some levels are too strict in the off season. They're a prisoner of their off season diet. They can't be flexible. There are people out there in the off season, they cannot function like they're out there. They can't function at like an event. They take Tupperware to weddings. They're 50 weeks out from their show and they're 10% body fat. And they're like, nope, today's a Tuesday. I can't have like 8 ounces of steak. It says 8 ounces of chicken on my plan. I can't,
right.
There's that. And, I mean, I think there's a time and place for that in the off season when you're managing how you look. But I think that you're a bodybuilder. I think you should have room for some extra food.
Right.
I just thought that was one of the privileges of being a big bodybuilder who trained his ass off, was we get to kind of out eat everybody and we get to reap benefits from it. It's not always a bad thing. So, I want my clients to eat. I want my clients to have good off seasons and go out for dinner on the weekend. And, I want them to also have the metabolism, because of the way they train, that it's actually necessary.
Right.
And, and then it's, 20 weeks out, 16 weeks out, depending on the person, the day prep starts, that's the day that you are now like,
You're a prisoner.
yeah, you're locked in. You know, I got people where I have one meal a week in their off season because, you know, maybe we're just trying to get a baseline for the body and we got more room later. That's fine. But when prep starts now, it's like, that's it.
Yeah.
Right. What about you, Scott?
Yeah, everybody's going to be different depending on how their body works. I really like that, the way that Chad put that, the 80 to 90%. I could see actually stealing that from him in the future for, you know, different situations. I would say, though, when do we cut it out? It's going to depend on the person. In some ways, in some situations, it's kind of like it's figured in. So if we can at least leave a cheat meal in at 20 weeks out through even 12, 10 weeks out, and that's kind of like figured into what we're doing. Maybe the rest of the food might allow us to still lose fat, and then that meal kind of loads them back up, and then they deplete through the week, and then they load back up. It can kind of become part of the cycle, you know? But at some point, I'm probably going to cut that out, and we're going to say, hey, we're going to work to get you depleted. And then we'll either use a cheat meal or a high day to load them back up. And then that will become like our test run for loading for the show. And that might be as early as 10 weeks out. And then we can kind of get you depleted and then load you back up. See how that went and repeat that process all the way. Whoops, almost knocked my shaker cup over. Got excited there.
Wasn't a shaker cup.
all the way into the show, you know. So but it would depend, you know, when do we cut it out? It's going to depend on like what kind of progress you're making. You know, if we could ideally, we'd like in an ideal world, you could still have that one meal a week all the way in. Is it going to happen? Probably not, you know. And part of it too, by the way, the mental thing. I was going to say in the off season, you don't want to burn people out. So that's why I want them to have those breaks as much as they can. And then even in contest prep, if you can give them that one break to be able to have it, it can be, I think, helpful to keep the morale up. But,
Right. Definitely.
Yeah. That's why, I mean, the reason I asked is I have a few people that I know who are following preps that are competing like 10 months from now, and their coaches are like, no cheat meals. And I'm like, and I know them, so I know their body fat, things like that. It's an interesting move. I actually write out, like Ron does in the beginning, my clients' treat meals. I call them treat meals instead of cheat because they're in the plan. So that you're not cheating. Cheating is if you go off and do whatever the hell you want. But the reason I put them in there is I want them to stay tight, actually making sure they eat enough. I find that when people are randomly cheating, the biggest issue is they go out for lunch, have this monster meal, and then they miss 2 more meals because of it.
Yeah.
And now their protein for the day is shot, and it kind of spirals, you know? So there is an amount where it's based on the levels. And same thing, I have clients that I have to tell them, no, I'm telling you, you are not allowed to eat 42 meals off of this plan this week. I need one meal that is higher calorie than anything listed here. You must do it, because they're trying to be ultra hardcore. And I'm like, I don't want that right now. Yeah. I'm planning for when we're going to pull that all in tight, and your metabolism is where I want it to be. Your morale is where I want it to be. And you are ready now to suck down, you know? And I don't think that that's often factored in for people, is those two sides of that coin. Like when you're working with someone long-term, you're planning what's going to happen at that 20-week out. Like it's your job to make sure they're where you want them at 20, 16, 12 weeks out. And it's determined by those things, you know? If you have a client that you're saying 80, 90% and you start watching them get fat, you're like, whoa, I think you're going a little far here, kiddo. What's happening? And you can reel them back in, you know? So
that's also what the advantage of working with someone in the off season. I think that, you know, if I look back at, I mean, I don't know how many people I've helped for shows, but I'm sure I'm wondering if you guys agree with this. You're more likely to have a hard time with a client if they just came to you for prep.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're like, hey, here's my pictures. I'm 220 pounds. You know, I'm ready to go. Day 1 of the diet. And I mean, you know, that's a bulk of what helping people for prep is there's a lot of that. Yeah. But I think, you know, most of the people I work with now off season as well. But there's such an advantage to it, because when you get someone that just comes to you for prep, like sometimes you get them going and you're like, oh, like he's not losing weight on this. Oh, his metabolism is just like, okay, like let's do this. And then the weight scale moves and you're like, oh, I see how this is going to go. Like we're going to have to get this guy ripped on like this can be a hard diet. And you could see it early, and we get that off season setup, it's just so much different.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Game changing.
That just the cheat meal alone can be a tool of getting leaner. Like sometimes too, it's like you can just pull the cheat meal and leave everything else. And then now all of a sudden it's like, oh, now they're coming down, and then we just ride that out for a month. But you're right, Ron, if you start working with somebody and it's 16 weeks out, if they don't respond exactly how you want them to in that first week, it might take 3 weeks to figure out like, okay, what do we really need? Here's the way I always put it too is, and I've used this analogy when people have missed check-ins. I say like that I feel like I'm in the passenger seat navigating, you're driving, and if I'm not looking at the road, I can't tell you when to turn. So if you just pick me up, like we're going to prep and you pick me up and you're like, okay, we're 20 blocks from prep, how do I get there? It's going to take us a little time to figure, well, I just got in the car. I'm going to have to get used to this and start watching the street in order to tell you like where to make the turns,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yep. Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you think a physique is here and you try to move them to here, I guess I'll go across the screen. So you think it's here and you want to move them here, but in reality, their physique is actually here.
Yeah.
Then when you make the move, they don't wind up in the same place. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah,
for sure.
And you're 3 weeks into prep and you're like, oh, this guy's metabolism is kind of slow. And you're looking at the clock already. Ah, shit. So no one wants to be in that position.
Yeah.
Help. If you're going to get a coach, help them out. Call them early.
Yeah, no, I think that's enormous to do. Is the quicker you can hand over the reins, the better. And for the athlete, like I worked with Chris year round, and we didn't like check in nonstop in the off season, but I had the base plan, and then every now and then I would just send him pictures, and I would just kind of remind him where I was, and he's like, "All right, cool, keep rolling." You know what I mean? But it was always a way to touch base and make sure, because I tended to shrink down a little bit in the off season, so I kind of wanted to know that I was both fat and small before we got started.
Another thing that I think it always comes back to, I think you guys will agree, when you take on a client and like week 1, you're like, oh, exactly the results I was hoping for. Right? A lot of the times those people train really hard.
Oh yeah.
And when they send a video, you're like, oh, they're already on it. They're watching Hollingshead train. They're watching. They're watching all the right Instagram guys. They're wearing Trained by JP sweatshirts in their videos, and they're that like they are putting in high effort, and you're like, oh, that's why the response was the way it was. You see a pattern.
Yeah, that's the secret. I literally just had this conversation with someone the other day. And he said, how much cardio we're going to do? I said, are you going to start training harder? Then I'll answer the question.
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't be too high. I never did a ton of cardio, but I was trying to kill myself until the day of the show and training. So it worked out well. It's definitely one of those things. And I would much rather make my workout hell than do another 30 minutes on a treadmill.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Definitely. Okay.
I've got a question from a listener here. I'd really love to get your guys' feedback on. He had said, how accurate were Dorian Yates' logbooks? It's extremely depressing reviewing them, watching his decline bench go from 350 to 3 to 425 for 6 in 3 months. This progression happens with every other lift as well. Is this what people talk about with elite genetics? Some weeks I can be doing everything right and almost miss my reps from my previous week, and it seems Dorian legitimately beat his logbook every workout from 1985 to 1990. Are my genetics trash, or has this happened to you guys?
I have so much to say. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm not doubting that Dorian beat his logbooks constantly. That people have to remember that the reason why Dorian believed in his training, so like he believed he was training better than everyone else, and that's because he was recording his results and they were better than everyone else's results. So everything was reinforced to him. It worked so well for him to do things that way that there was no way he was going to change. You know, a lot of people say, oh, I tried to train like that and I just didn't make the gains. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, he was obviously set up for that exact, like all the equalizer was set to be like that, you know? And I don't think your genetics are trash. I just think his genetics for putting on muscle were a lot better than most people's. And his effort and dedication was drastically better than most people's. And those things just collide to create athletes like that. I don't know.
So my my thing I have to add is, first off, a lot of people would mark me as like an extremely intense trainer in the gym.
Sure.
And I've trained with extremely intense athletes, Branch Warren. I mean, many guys that are just known to be beasts. And I trained with Dorian Yates, retired. He was the most intense human I've ever been in a room with. Training with him, and all I thought of during the workout was, what was he like when he was doing this? Because I know this is down. This is tapered down from what he was, and he's the most intense I've ever trained with.
That's crazy.
And I'm like that's the thing people, you can't understand even watching a video. Like, I mean, literally, I first set, I'm like, I mean, you could almost feel intensity radiating off of this guy. And I'm thinking, what was the room like in 94? Like, like, you know what I mean? So I think that's the thing people really need to understand is when Dorian went to the gym to beat his logbook, he didn't say, I wonder if I'm going to beat my logbook today. It was already done.
Yeah.
It was done. And everything about his life was about becoming bigger and better. Everything. His entire life revolved around it. And I do not think that most people's lives should revolve around that, because you're not Dorian Yates. You do not have his genetics, and you will waste your life. I think you should give it your all and have fun with it, even at a high level. But unless you're going to get the return on investment that Dorian Yates got, I think a little bit of balance is okay.
There you go. Okay.
That's a good one.
That's interesting.
Yeah. What about it? We had a bunch of them here still. This was something we were talking about, I think, travel. Oh, no, the protein scooper one. I just wanted to share this comment. He said, I found a trick that works to get the protein scooper to the top of the protein almost every time. So this is what he says to do. You flip the tub upside down and you swirl it around. He says he's found that clockwise works best.
I love this guy.
If you, counterclock works if you live in Canada. So that's for you, Ron. Continue to swirl the jug as you flip it back to the correct side and firmly set it down. Your scoop should now be near the top. Thank me later.
You know what lesson in physics.
A
little physics on the show.
See my dumbass swirling around protein clockwise. I love it. I love that. But like I said, when Mutant loves you, they're always on the top.
Did you have anything else, Dusty? I know we had some more list of questions, but I know you had some stuff too.
Yes. So a couple things, because I've actually had people asking. So both of these are subject you guys can put together. First up, how do you guys handle, and I know you're going to say it depends on the client, but overall, how do you like to handle carb up protocols for the last bit before a show?
Well, ideally, someone's in fantastic shape with lots of time left. So you can start to, if someone's been going hard, like, they're doing, they're hitting cardio and they're dieting hard, and then, everything's in, the glutes are in, the hams are in, ideal situation. I like to start backing down on the overall stress, as far out as like even 10 days out or a week out. You dial the cardio back a bit, add a bit of carbs in, see how they do. And I like to kind of, ideally, if you have enough time, I like to carb people up, like not multiple days in a row, but like maybe give them a high day on Saturday, and then they're, back onto a diet Sunday, see how they look, give them a high day Monday, hit them with a high day Wednesday. And maybe they're not going right back down to baseline diet in between. They're still got more carbs in, but they're not high day, And now they got 3 high days in the last 6 days. So they're probably in a little different a position, I like to do that. And then, you can do decent carbs Thursday and maybe another day Friday, a high day Friday. And you just had 4 high days in the last, 8 days.
Right.
And you look a lot different than when you were on 50 carbs a day for 5 weeks straight.
Right.
So I ideally, I think you want to avoid having to like ram people with food. Like, when you have a guy, the opposite end of the spectrum is like this one classic guy that I help. He looks like really good at 225, 230, but he's got to be 212. So it's really tough. He's got to get down to 212, make weight. And now he's got what? 16 hours?
Yeah.
He's 212, sucked to death. Like the face is a skeleton, and he's flat as shit. The pecs are the collarbone sticking out, and he's got to be full the next day at 9 a.m. So that's obviously, we had to talk about maybe you're done with classic. We've had that discussion too. So he really wanted to do it one more time. He won his class at the last show he won his class, but it's tough for him to get to 212. And so the opposite end is trying to ram guys with food, short notice,
and hope that their stomach handles it.
Yeah, hope the stomach handles it. Hope the legs don't get like, did you overdo it a little or something? It's, some guys can take an enormous amount of food and wake up the next day looking way better, and other people, it's so that I want to avoid that. And the opposite end of that is having plenty of time to feed somebody up over a period of days.
Right.
I'm down with that. I mentioned before, a lot of times I'll try to just through the diet, we deplete somebody and then load them. And usually I'll say like, hey, all right, let's keep checking in 2 days. Okay. Checking in 2 days. And they're getting more and more depleted. Right. And then finally we say, okay, tomorrow, let's do this high day and then check back in, take pictures tomorrow. Let's see how you look. And then let's take pictures the day after the high day and see how you look. And we can that way we can take a lot of the guesswork out, because we can do that all the way in. It's just a matter of timing it up to like, okay, now we're going to deplete you up until the show. Now that said, I sent you guys pictures of Nick Vicolo a while back, and I was like, what do you guys think? Could this guy do classic? And he went to Universe and he got second. All right. He looked really good. He got in classic, and it's like his first time he ever did well at a national show. Before that, he was 190-pound light heavyweight that would be like, in the middle of the second call out or something, just too tall for that class, needed a lot more muscle. So we were like, let's hold off for Masters Nationals. But we knew we could get him a little bit leaner too. And we had about like 17 days or something. So we pushed hard, and I got him really depleted. And then I said, okay, let's do that. Let's do a carb up. And he didn't fill out. I saw him the next day. He was like so flat, like, cause we really tried to push. So he was so flat. So I was like, why don't you do another high carb day and shoot me pictures after work? And like, he still didn't look good. So I was like, why don't you do a burger tonight? And then the next day it was like, why don't you do another high carb day? He like still wouldn't fill out. And the game plan was to give him, like, get him filled out, now deplete, and then fill him out to the show. It didn't end up working that way. We ended up filling out for like 4 days. And by then it was like Saturday. He competed on Wednesday. It was just this last Wednesday. And I was like, okay, so now he's full. And then we just let him deplete on Sunday and then gave him a little bit of food. Then he's full already. It doesn't take a lot, right?
Yeah,
we
yeah,
just
yeah.
filled him back up for, Monday, and he doesn't have to worry about making scale. He still had room. And then we just wrote it in, and we just had to deal with water then,
Right.
But
yeah.
he ended up missing his pro card again by one place and 1 point. 1 point. And I get it. The other guy had more muscle. Like he was bigger, and Nick it was close though. It was really close. I got a picture here. This is how he turned out here.
Oh yeah.
Just a tiny waist too,
Love that structure.
Yeah,
just
good.
tiny waist. So we're going to try to grow now. He's got to deal with real life stuff. So he's going back to, living life, doing work, taking care of the family. He's got a full family, and he's just did these 3 shows. So he's taking the time off, but it's so cool because he went from being a guy who was like going to do a national level show for fun to now he's like, hey, crap, I could get a pro card.
And knocking on the door. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I love the answers on those because I feel like the part that gets missed often that Jose said to me at one point that was so great, which is at the end of a prep, anything drastic that can help you can hurt you. And I think that's something people miss. So when you decide to swing for the fences, just assume there's a 50% shot you're going to wake up better, and a 50% shot you're screwed and you just lost your entire prep. So it's much better when you can just kind of cruise in. I know a lot of people would ask like my carb up during when Chris would work with me, and it never failed. I did 8 ounces of potatoes with every meal.
Okay.
For like 2 days. That's it. Huh. There was like no, he had me bring other stuff in case, and like I just got a little fuller, a little tighter, a little fuller. He had me salt them.
Yeah.
So I was doing salted potatoes 6 times a day for 2.5 days. And it was like, all right, we're good. And I mean, every time I'd wake up in the morning and it was like, we're ready. I think that a lot of people, like you said, Ron, they think they're going to just jam these carbs down. And if you need to do that, then you either had to go too far to make weight or whatever, or you should have never been that depleted in the first place. Because like you said, Scott, like sometimes there ain't no coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had we not had the time, if I was like, oh, we'll just fill you out, 3 days before, 2 days before the show, you would have been screwed. He would have been flat. I mean, we filled out for like 3-4 days, and it was a hard push. There are so many people that are like, I had a guy ask me recently, we're getting ready to do a show, and he was like, well, what's your protocol? What are we going to do? Like, will we use insulin? Do we need growth? All this different stuff. And it's like,
I don't know. That's my favorite answer Chris ever gave me. Was for the first show we ever did. I said, hey, I'm prepping all my food to bring. What are we going to be eating? He literally responded back with, I don't know. Yeah. I was like, all right. So back then I was so obsessive, Scott, that I at the time we had eaten whitefish, chicken, flank steak, and salmon. So I made enough to have 6 meals of every one of those things if they were the only thing I ate. I brought all of it with me. Oh, so man. It was like I brought 36 meals of all 4 of those things just in case to Chicago.
Good God.
Chris never really dictated my proteins to me ever.
Yeah?
Yeah.
He'd be like, what are you eating? And I'm like, chicken breast, bit of steak, egg whites. He's like, okay.
I don't think most people could handle how loose he was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, he just knew that I'm not changing anything. Like, I'm not going to suddenly go to fish and not tell him.
Right.
Right.
And I remember I asked him once in a while, like, do you want me to lower my fat a little bit? I'm still having ground turkey once a day. It's not the leanest. He'd be like, it's kind of the only fat in your diet. I just leave it in. Cause like, we'd go pretty low fat, right?
Yeah.
He's like, you're eating egg whites and whey isolate. Maybe just leave in the ground turkey. Like,
we need that.
He said on Heavy Muscle one day that he shoots for 97%. He's like, if you shoot for 100, you're probably going to end up with 100, or you might end up with 103. And that's going to be just as bad as, being 50.
Right. Yeah. Chris called me the other day. I'd just done my last set in the gym.
Yeah.
So I answered the phone in FaceTime in the gym.
It was FaceTime he called you on, just randomly.
Yeah, and I said, I pretended I was still training. I go, you're the only person I will answer in the middle of a workout. He was like, oh, the Canadian Trendmaster's important workout. Funny.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Hey, what about this one? This is one of our listeners. You said, okay, here we go. Okay, as coaches, if a newbie client came to you and said they want to do a show, maybe in a year, but they want to ease into it, is that a red flag? Do you take them on? If so, how do you do it? In my case, I'm 48 and I'd like to do a show, but I'm not about to pack meals on a plane, or I'm not going or not have some snacks. I think I could do it in 6 to 8 weeks right before the show. I feel like life is too short to not do that for a year, especially when I'm not going to have a career in bodybuilding. Maybe I just don't have the desire. What says you?
I think that you don't have the desire to act like you want to step on stage, but that's not what competing is about.
Yep.
Competing is about like, if you don't want to be the best you can possibly be for your show, it's just kind of a weird thing to do. Like, yeah. I don't really get the like do a show and just be okay with being 30% of your potential. No one wants that. Anytime I've ever, any bodybuilder who steps on stage at less than their best is probably not that happy, which is like almost all the shows I ever did. That's why I said before, competing wasn't really that fun. Like, a lot of it was disappointing. A lot of those shows were disappointments because I wasn't quite, you think, man, I got second. That could have been a little bit bigger. It could have been a little tighter because there's that hunt for that 1 more percent. Yeah. And no matter what placing you get, like, one show I got fourth. I'm like, oh man, if it would have been a little bit tighter, I might have been able to be third. Like, I always had the mentality where like I wanted every possible placing I could ever get, and everything was usually a disappointment. And I can't imagine then also going into it with the mentality that I'm not really going to try.
Yeah.
Like, add that onto it. I don't see how you could be successful enough to make it worth your time,
Yeah, I feel like you're better off in that scenario. I have plenty. I just posted this yesterday. I had a guy come up.
Just enjoy training.
He reached out to me, and his goal, he literally said, one of my questions in my questionnaire is, why are you hiring me? What's your goal? And he said, I want to be the most jacked dad at the local swimming pool. And I was like, done. When do we need to be ready for the pool?
Yeah, fair
enough.
enough.
And we got ready. You know what I mean? So my point is, I don't think that this guy should compete in bodybuilding. Because you can have a snack on the airplane when you want to be the most jacked dad. Now, if you work with me, I'm still going to tell you not to. But, you can. Everything comes down to your goals. And like you said, Ron, like, it's very hard for me to not feel like I'm stealing from you.
Yeah.
If I'm writing your diet and your plan and you're not following it. Because the first thing, like, clients will send me their check-in. A guy like him, and he says, hey, I was on the road this week. I ate what they had on the plane. Plus I had some snacks and I had a couple Jack and Cokes, and I had 3 meals off the plan. Here's my check-in. What should I change this week? And I say, you should follow the diet, and I send it back. Well, if we do that for like 2 months, I'm starting to feel like a thief because I cannot manipulate your plan that you're not following to get your results. I have no idea why we're not. I know why we're not succeeding because you're not following the plan, but I don't think people realize that the plan is put into place so that a reaction takes place, and then we take that information to adjust the plan. But if you're not staying close to that plan, we can't do that, and now I'm just stealing from you. So for me as a coach, it's not that I'm, like heated or super hardcore. It's just I can't be of value to you if you're doing it that way, and it's kind of a waste. I'd rather a guy like that, like he said, I could do it for 6 to 8 weeks. Fine. Let's do best, most jacked dad of the pool for 6 to 8 weeks and go hard. Yeah. I'd much rather work with you for that time than for a whole year where we're kind of dicking around. Because you won't get results. I won't have any fun. And I hate to say this, but I don't need the $250 bad enough to do that. I would rather work with someone that wants it.
Right.
I got a question because I want to dig into this further. Ron, you said there's a desire to compete and there's a desire to get on stage or something to that effect. What does that mean then? What is, because I think that for people that don't get it, and maybe for this listener, what is the competing about then?
It was, well, the competing was always about trying to get the physique that was in my brain. Like I had a dream of a physique in my head and I was trying to create that. But the show was just like the day that it was due, in a way. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. It was a mile marker.
Because the way I kind of read it is that it's about it doing everything you can to get that physique in your brain.
Yeah.
Like this is, I'm going to take this time to do whatever I can in my power to create that thing that I have in my head. You know, and that's what the show is. That's what the competition is that versus, like, I've always said this, there's two kinds of people. There are the people that say, what more can I do? And the people that say, what more can I get away with? And I think what you're telling me is, like, what are the things? What are all the things? That's what competing is to me, is what are all the things I can do to bring my best? And then this guy does the same thing. And then we both get on stage together and see who battles it out and wins.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I mean, it was always sort of like, looking back on it, I guess I always kind of had a bit of a view that it was like kind of like a performance art piece. You know, like all the work you put into it, somehow I felt was visible. In the final, like if I, like, people are going to see how hard I worked. Like I wanted that to come across, you know? I didn't want people to ever look at my physique and think, oh, he's a lazy bodybuilder. Like I wanted them to look at my physique and go, oh, this guy's worked really hard to look like this. Like this, like, you know, look his condition, you know, look what he did with his frame. Like this is, you know, I guess I always hoped that would be part of the thing. So I always wanted to do the most I could because I thought that it was going to be part of the look. I don't know whether that's realistic or not. Some guys have an easy time looking a certain way, but I sort of felt
it's no one on this show.
I sort of felt like, and I probably hindered myself in a lot of ways. Like I've talked about how I probably overdid it in the gym a lot when my calories were too low, and I probably pushed my calories too low. I probably depleted myself too far sometimes. And I know I did several shows where I wasn't as full as I should have been because I was like chasing the glutes so aggressively that I just, you know, would realize after the show, like, oh, I should have been fuller. Like my pecs are fuller now, you know, like a lot of that. But it's the intent, you know, the intent was to put the craziest amount of hard work I could into this sort of art project.
Yeah. So the idea is, I think you said, like, the snacks, he could have, he was like, I don't want to not have the snacks and be able to eat what I want, you know? So that's kind of like, versus it's not for you competing, then it wouldn't have been taking away, because those are not the things. You didn't want the snacks, you wanted the physique.
No. And I actually enjoyed the feeling of not having the snacks. Like I enjoyed those moments.
It was your desire.
I took pride in those moments. Like, you know, those moments when everyone's grabbing a piece of pizza, but you're like, no, I'm not eating pizza right now. And I was very clear about the language I used. I always wanted to make sure it wasn't like, I can't have that right now. I would always work on, I didn't talk like that. I was like, oh, I'm getting ready for a show right now, so I'm not eating that.
Right.
I would say that to people, like,
but you're choosing.
Yeah, it's completely in my control, and there's nothing you can do to change my mind.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's the, you know, the thing that has altered with competition is it's become well known. So a lot of people just feel like they should do a show. And
all my friends did one. I'm going to do one.
Yeah, when I first competed, the confusion in my father's face when I invited him to come watch me and a bunch of dudes in my underwear on stage was interesting. He's like, "What are you doing? Why?" And I did.
Well, Arnold did it.
And he's like, "Why?" Like, you know. And the funniest part was, for me, and Ron, you know this, I never liked competing. I always loved prepping. But like you said with the art project, I needed the mile marker. I needed the date, the calendar, and the stage to check in on myself and see where I was and then keep moving forward. And that's why it never mattered that I was not going to be an elite pro. Could I be better than I was 9 months ago, 13 months ago, 17 months ago? Did I bring up the arm like I said I was going? You know what I mean? Because I spent all year doing that, so that was the check-in for me. And I think if that's not the way you're wired for training and the way you look, that's okay, but you're not wired for bodybuilding. So I wouldn't suggest competing. I'd suggest picking another reason to lean down, to look good, and you're set to go. Because the people who really want to bodybuild, they're psychopaths. That's all they wanted to do all year.
Yeah, especially as you climb the ladder, like you see people go from amateur or regional to national, and then from national to pro, and then to actually jumping into pro shows. And what they got away with at a certain level, they run into a ceiling and they're like, oh, this is where it ends, because I'm doing a little bit of snacking on the planes, and these other guys are not snacking on the planes. Mm-hmm. And you just, there's just everyone sort of comes into their moment of realization of what their level is actually at,
Yeah.
That's
a good question.
We got some over unders.
Yeah.
We do. Let's close out with those. All right. Start off with an easy one. Netflix. Overrated, underrated?
I'd say it's a bit overrated, because I think like the last 4 shows that we watched were like on Crave and Apple and other streamers. I don't think we did watch Black Mirror, which was on Netflix, but of like the last 4 or 5 shows we watched, I think that was the only Netflix one.
Right.
So there sometimes I think, man, I wish this one show was on Netflix. Like there's a handful of stuff I have to have the other channels for,
Agreed. We have them all. Go ahead.
Yeah.
What about you, Scott?
I think that Gladiators show was on Netflix, but outside of that, I haven't watched much Netflix. We have Hulu, and we'll watch that. So we've been watching Lost, which we're getting ready to go to Australia, and we're watching that. Victoria was like, what's the cutoff date when we're supposed to stop watching Lost before we fly to Australia? Because that's where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Maybe we just watch it all, maybe we'll
to the end.
Who knows?
Watch it on the flight.
Yeah.
How far into Lost are you?
We're deep. We're real deep. Like season 4, like I think the end of season 4 now. So it's like, it's crazy. The show is, I forgot how good it is. And I also forgot how, I forgot what happened in a lot of cases. So did she. So we're like watching it again for the first time. Like, oh crap, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
I love it.
I never finished Lost. I got to the end of season 4 and I thought it was great, but I think something happened with my life and my schedule. And I just, that was back in the watch TV days. Right?
Oh yeah.
Like that was like, it was on TV, like Wednesdays at 9 or whatever. Like all of a sudden my, your schedule changes and you're not home Wednesdays at 9 for a while, and you just stop watching Lost.
You don't have a VHS,
Yeah, you just don't
Can't
think
record it.
Remember PVR and stuff? Remember those days? I'll PVR it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
Oh, that's great. All right. On that note, Scott, of you guys going to Australia, overrated, underrated, first class travel, business class.
I wouldn't know, because I've never tasted that fruit. I know that when I do, that I'll never go back. And so, although when Mutant flew us to Germany, we did get like the upgraded, like nicer seats. They brought you a damp towel and all of that. And Dre and I were living in the lap of luxury. I made sure to like pull that freaking curtain back so those peasants didn't come. Yeah, peasants didn't come and see us. That was it, though. I think we're doing that for Australia too. Nice. But it's definitely like a small upgrade compared to first class. I'm just too cheap, man. I can't do it. I can't spend like an extra $1,000 plus for a better seat. So yeah. I
Ron,
wish I could.
You've done plenty of business class travel. Overrated or underrated?
Oh, it's wow. Aside from the price, it's unbelievably underrated. I think most people don't want to fly first class because it'll just destroy and ruin getting on a plane. Like it's pretty, like you fly overseas. I remember the first time I got put in first class was because British Airways lost my luggage.
Yeah.
And so on the return flight, they were like, "Hey, we're really sorry about that terrible inconvenience on your way over. We're going to put you in business on the way back, you and all your friends."
Yeah.
So we all got to sit in business, and like after that trip, just ruins it.
Valid, very valid.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then the next flight, you have to sit in coach, and you don't get an aisle seat. Oh, you just want to kill yourself. Yeah.
Oh God, I will have a conniption if I don't get an aisle seat though. That's the thing is like back in the day, years ago, you didn't have the choice. Like with Southwest Airlines, for instance, it was just like first come, first serve, grab a seat. And I would kind of have like a little bit of a panic attack thinking that I was going to have a bad seat. But now at least you can pick your seats. And I know I can hang my arm way out there and piss everybody off for the whole ride.
Yeah. I know when I book with Air Canada, it's like, the flight will be $400 with no seat selection.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Not until you check in, and then it's a lottery, right?
Yeah.
Or you can select your seat ahead of time, and it's $500, and you're like, "That's $100 I'm willing to spend."
Yeah. Oh, every time. Yeah.
Emergency aisle exit.
And I learned a tool from Ron when you first sit down, you have to sit in the front relaxed position because when the stewardess walks by, she's gonna test you.
You have to establish dominance.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No. Tammy knows our travel agent the seats that I like, and she is amazing. She will literally knows exactly which seat, and if like my flight to Arizona, I'm not in the exact seat I'm always in because someone had it. So she actually emailed me to let me know where I was and why it wasn't the normal seat. I'm like, I love this lady so much. She is, that's Mutant's lady. She is amazing.
So she's hooked me up too then. She does a great job. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, she is the absolute best. I mean, I don't know if I told you, Scott, but I missed a flight coming back from overseas. Yeah. Because Trump was landing somewhere. So they held us from taking off. Okay. So then we end up missing a flight, and I end up stuck in like Chicago, and it was supposed to be overnight. Yeah. So literally I hit the ground. I know I'm screwed. And I'm like, I don't even know how I want to handle this right now. Like I was so tired. And then my phone rings. And I'm like, hello? And it was her. And she's like, hey, you missed your flight. I've rebooked you for tomorrow morning. There's a car waiting for you downstairs, and you're going to this hotel. I was like,
wow, what? That's awesome.
Like, I literally walked down the stairs, got in a car, went straight to a hotel I didn't book, knew when to be back outside to go back to the airport the next day. It was, I was like, okay, I love you, Mutant. And Tammy, you're getting a Christmas present. So,
yeah, Tammy's great. She just finished booking up my Mutant on a Mission trip that's coming up in August. I got to go film three more episodes. So I just gave her the addresses for the gyms. And she's like, Kate, and she Googled the gyms and booked the closest hotel to each gym. You know what I mean? Made her life very easy. Got it all done for me. Yeah. Really great.
Amazing. If you travel often, get a travel agent. They know things we don't know. Yeah. Trust me. You want a Tammy. Okay. Let's see here. Formal education.
I think we did this one before.
Did we?
Doesn't matter. Yep. Doing it again.
Okay.
Because I watched a great thing on it that I thought was awesome. And a guy just said this, and I thought it was fantastic. Because obviously I have a 17-year-old, and I'm hearing a lot about it from school. He said, the thing that drives him crazy is the question asked in high school is, where are you going to college? Yeah. When the question should be, why are you going to college? Yeah. Right? And I love that. So, overrated, underrated. Formal education, go.
Right now, it's showing to be overrated in a general way. Unless, of course, you want to be if you want to be a doctor, you kind of have to go to university.
Right.
Like
Right.
you can't say underrated. You're going to just be a doctor some other way.
I learned it at home. I learned it on the internet.
Obviously, for certain things, there's no other way around it. But I think a lot of people, like you said, Dusty, are thinking, oh, I just have to go. And that's when you wind up like, I was always afraid of being one of those people that was like 3 years into a degree and then realized I didn't care. And then because I met those people like, I took 3 years of this and then I switched my major. Yeah. And then I did 2 more years of that. And then I never graduated because I wound up starting a online business and you know what I mean? So that sort of thing. And there's a lot to say about a good education being obviously, teaching you how to think critically and all that stuff. I'm not too sure that certain departments of our universities are doing a lot of critical thinking right now. So there's might be a little bit of a lack of critical thinking in some of these academic institutions at the moment. So there's definitely certain things about university I would say are drastically overrated. But if you have a good why, then that's the answer. If you have a good why, there's your answer. But if you're just going because you think you're supposed to, and you're going to go rack up, 50 grand, 60 grand, 80 grand in debt on some degree, and you don't really even have a business idea or anything like that, I think that's a problem.
Right.
I'm with that 100%.
Right now we are cyborgs.
Yeah.
We're already cyborgs. The difference between this in our hand and this in our head isn't actually that big of a difference. It's just the speed of accessing it. But right now we've got all the information in the world at our fingertips to do whatever we want. And I think that Gary Vee talks about this all the time.
Yeah. I'm one step closer with the watch. I'm monitoring what my body does. Yeah, I'm monitoring what my body does at all times. I can check my sleep, what my heart rate's doing, what my oxygen is, and I'm getting all sorts of great info. Plus, somebody texts me while we're here, and I'm like, oh, I got a text. I don't even have to look,
Yeah.
What kind of watch are you? What are you running? What is that?
I got the new Apple Watch, and I specifically got it to be able to monitor my just everything that's going on with my body, so I can see. I wanted to be able to get more critical data to kind of see with my health. We're looking for patterns, basically. What is it? What are the different things that happen when I have my high periods and my low periods, my strong periods, my weak periods? What are we seeing in the data from the watch? So, it's still early right now. So right now we're just gathering, and it's kind of fun to see.
That's very cool. Very, very cool.
Okay.
I love
Keep us
data.
posted.
I don't know why. It's obsessive.
The reason I don't have an Apple phone is I feel like I don't want. First of all, I wear no jewelry whatsoever.
Yeah, me neither.
I feel like it'd be weird to have a watch on.
Well, I have the ring, but yeah.
Oh yeah, and then also too, I sort of didn't want any more things alerting me. I didn't want to be overstimulated. I thought if I had it, I'd be fucking just annoyed all day. I don't know.
Yeah,
I have no alerts on my phones at all, so that's my secret there.
Yeah, mine are controlled, but
that do not disturb button is the most amazing thing in the world, because literally there are only 3 people on the planet that can interrupt my day. Other than that, it's when I look, because if not, when you're working, if it rings, I want to know what was that.
Yeah,
and I don't do we're not talking about Instagram and shit, just texts and emails, and I don't like that because it does distract me. So I just learned to turn it off. So and that's been game changing.
Ron and Nikki, in case anybody was wondering.
Why would I let her interrupt me? That is ridiculous. She's in the other room. She can walk over.
Donna.
Exactly. There it is. Yeah, it's actually classic. Okay. Scott, this one is a pointed one.
Uh-oh.
Yes. Weddings. Overrated, underrated, and you got to go into detail because obviously there's levels to weddings, the way people do them.
All right. And I did want to let you guys know I have one good closer, good feel good closer, and that was what he called it. No, he called it a feel good closer.
I like this guy already.
So I'm going to go back to my old ways, and I'm going to say that I can't say they're accurately rated. They're totally overrated. The traditional wedding is totally overrated. The cost, you just say you're going to get a wedding and have a wedding, and they're 30% more to rent this hall. And, the cost of everything related to a wedding, or if you want to buy it in white, goes up by 50% or whatever. So they're totally overrated. That said, my wedding to Victoria was literally one of the best days of my life. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. And there were 3 people on my side of the family, 3 people on her side of the family. It was super low key, and it was great. I couldn't ask for more. Too much pressure though in what we think we're supposed to do with weddings, and too much of an investment.
Yes. I have a lot of friends that did the first wedding real big.
How was the second?
And the second one was like, oh yeah, hey guys, we actually got married last month. I got a lot of friends who did that for the second one, And I know that it's like kind of a cliche, grumpy old man thing to say, but I do know many people who have told me that if they would have invested the money they spent on their first wedding, it would have transformed both their and their ex-wives' lives forever. You know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of pressure. It all starts with the competition thing. There's a very competitive thing in some people with their wedding, and they wind up going way overboard and inviting a lot of people that, like, do you really know your Uncle Jim, who's twice removed from your cousin Kayla?
Right.
Does he have to come and get a $20 steak dinner, and drink?
20.
Well, I don't know.
Scott's like, what?
I'm just okay. It's 1985. Does he have to come and have a $20 steak dinner? So yeah, I know people, what do people spend on weddings? It can be crazy.
Man. People spend 6 figures on a day.
Yeah.
On a day.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I was curious, Scott. I'll be honest. I was curious where you're answering, because I did know, obviously, that your wedding was awesome, but it was because of how you chose to do it. Not just who, obviously, I know that part, but how you chose to do it, and that's the part. It was funny because I told Nikki, I was like, when the girls get married, I'm going to give them a choice. They can have this much money for this or this, and I'm like, no, they can't have a choice. I'm buying them a house. Here's your down payment. That's what you get. Tell me when we're going to the signing, and I'll write the check. But you're not getting $30,000-$40,000 for a day. Not happening. Let's see here. Oh, I got one more, because this is important to me. Overrated or underrated? Little Caesars pizza. Sorry, this matters. This is a life lesson. Scott, you're first, because you're American.
I'm real hungry right now, and I think Little Caesars is from Michigan. I know. Yeah,
of course it is.
I think it is, because we do have Little Caesars Arena. That's where.
That's the wings.
Yeah. Yes. And I think they're from here. So is Domino's Pizza is from here. And they have Domino's Farms, which is really cool. And they have a big petting farm that we go to sometimes. And U of M's. So pizza's big. All right, this is big pizza. Big
my
pizza.
point. I'm getting to my point.
This is big.
Have you ever been to Italy? Great place. What is happening?
Big pizza town here,
Caesar
Dusty.
was actually
pizza money. There's a lot of pizza money here in Detroit.
This is amazing.
Flat out, I'm going to say underrated, because I'm hungry right now. And if if Victoria was like, hey, they just dropped off Little Caesars hot and ready pizza, I'd be like, fuck yeah.
See?
Totally. At this moment. Now,
do they have
after
Little
the
Caesars
show.
in Canada?
Oh yeah, we have Little Caesars in Canada.
All right.
I think the last time I had Little Caesars pizza was 2003, something like that.
Long
I think
time.
I grabbed one. I went and rented some movies from Blockbuster Video.
Yes, actually carried them home.
And then I went next door to Little Caesars Pizza and grabbed a large pie. Went home with my Blockbuster Videos and my Little Caesars Pizza.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Pizza's really big in Canada.
Oh,
There's a lot of
Pizza is
pizza.
big everywhere.
But like Canada, it's really big. You go to like little town, like the town where Victoria's dad lives. It's a small town, and there's like 5 pizza places.
Oh
Why is
yeah,
that,
they're
Ron?
all of them right around my house. I could see like 5 of them out my window. There's one of those, those kind of smaller local joints where you can go in and they have some by the slice, by the front door.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's one of those right by the spot where I ride. So if I have, like, yesterday we rode for 2.5 hours, like we went hard, like I drank 2 liters of fluid and we had a good session, and that place was still open. It was like 9:00 and they're still open. So I walked across the street, loaded my bike up, walked across the street. There's 3 slices of meat lovers just sitting there. They're all crispy because they've been under the hot
For
light
too long.
too long, so they're kind of crispy on top. And I was like, oh, I came at the perfect time. I'll take that whole top row. And you guys like, yeah. The little things in life. Just
What the guy said, the guy looked at him and goes, "You could have got 2 entire Little Caesars pizzas for this much money."
right.
Oh.
He actually gave me a deal. He's like they're the last ones. Because I
Yeah.
was like kind of like this going in. If he's going to have any, he might just have vegetarian left or something,
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you have left? He's like, just all meat. And I'm like, oh. For me?
All left for Ron right there.
Yeah. I
What
like
about
that
you, Dusty?
that crispy top, it was perfect.
Yeah.
Oh no. So this was a loaded question because I spend the majority of my life based around Little Caesars pizza now.
Oh.
Cigars, everything.
Oh,
And what
wow.
I mean by that is, so Little Caesars pizza is good. It's not phenomenal. It's good. It gets the job done, but it's $6. So I now have a really hard time when I go to a pizza place and it's $26 because I'm like, okay, it's good, but is it 4 times better than Little Caesars? No.
Right. They've set a bar of a certain
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's how my life has been. I don't know if ruined or saved by Little Caesars, and I do the same thing now with cigars. Like when I first got into them, I didn't care. Oh, $70, I'll try it. Well, that's great. And now I'm like, is it that much better than the $16 one? No.
Yeah.
So like my whole range has changed. So I'm like, I could have how many of these for that one? No. So yeah, Little Caesars has changed my entire life. I mean, I don't even go to strip clubs the same anymore. Wait, never mind. But yeah, no, that's why I asked, because I think it's the most phenomenal thing, because the girls were doing it, and I went to pick them up one day, and they handed me the receipt because you pay online, so I didn't even know. And I looked at the receipt and I was like, $12. I had these 2 giant pizzas. What the hell is going on right now? So I don't think there's actually any like real cheese on them or anything. But anyways, moving along.
It
It
doesn't
can't be.
matter.
It's too cheap.
It's all good.
You can't afford.
So
cheese.
what is our finishing question, Scott?
All right.
is
So this
time.
is from one of our Patreon peoples. And he said, question for It's Just Bodybuilding at the end of the show, question for good vibes. Guys, you'll have just won the 1 billion Thunderball. You have bought all the houses, the cars, the guns that you want, and you still have 99% of the money left. How would you go about trying to elevate other lives? Ideas to get you started, maybe local kids sport teams or schools or educating amateur bodybuilders. We do that now for free. Maybe helping something your family is in it too. Would be good to hear your thoughts.
I would open more Little Caesars.
I'd become a pizza mogul. And I'd have enough money to fund it until it was successful. I'd force it.
Ryan's
Push
success.
it down the line.
You're gonna shut down Detroit.
right.
You're gonna kill Detroit. That's what's gonna happen. Take over all the pizza money.
No, because I'm grabbing I'm franchising from them, so I'm making Detroit better because I
gotcha.
need more people to go play for the Red Wings. So, anyways, let's see. All right, what would we really do?
Could you buy the IFBB?
I don't. I want to enrich lives.
Well, you could do what you wanted with it then. You imagine if Dusty had control of the IFBB, Ron.
Could definitely buy the IPB. Disney paid $4 billion for Star Wars, so I'm sure the IFBB isn't worth $1 billion.
Yeah.
Do you think now that Disney's messed up Star Wars, I could get it for $1 billion?
Well, they're actually, I think they might sell it. And I heard Apple was interested in buying Star Wars off them because they tanked it so bad.
See,
Probably get it for $3 billion.
I get it for $1 billion. I get my money. All right, now we get serious. What would you? Is there something you guys can think of? Here's what stinks: is a lot of things that I would like to do. What's scary is if there's enough money to make it happen. Like, I mean, I immediately think of things like, I mean, because, you have friends that's like that have family members that have had issues with Alzheimer's or, cancer. But it's like, I don't even know if $1 billion scratches the surface.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and so you'd want to make sure you put the money into something that would work.
I've thought about this before, and my initial thoughts would be that I would want to do some stuff that was really fun that gave back to the things that I really like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I thought, man, I'd love to put on, because, you're a billionaire. So just think of like how hard it is to run out of money. So
Yeah.
I'd promote a pro show and offer huge prize money. And it would just be fun.
That'd be cool.
If you offered $500,000 for first place, if you out first place, can you out first place the Olympia if you want? Ooh. Can you just offer that? Can you have a pro show and have more money than the Olympia for first place? Is that in the rules? Or do they kind of reserve the right to have the most prize money? I don't know if another promoter
I feel
can
like
come
there'd been things with like the Arnold in the past where there had been like kind of like you couldn't do things kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe you just think, I want to have the best show. I'm going to pay for absolutely all the expenses of all the pros, fly everybody in, pay for all their rooms, just make it like a craziest show you've ever seen and just have a big celebration of massive event and expo and just make it crazy. And I don't know. And then also too, like, I love Flatland and there's no money in it at all. Like the best riders in the world are maybe the 5-10 guys that actually make a living out of it. So I would have like a contest and I'd offer crazy prize money and get everybody to come and just have fun. And then the next thing I would do is dog rescues. Like I would maybe set up a foundation of dog rescues that were really, well funded, that could do some really cool stuff and try to make a difference that way. Because I love dogs so much, and I follow all the rescue pages, and I just want to adopt all the dogs, and I think that would probably be very rewarding. It would be have like a big dog rescue that could make a difference.
Yep.
So
that'd be cool.
I back the last one a ton.
The dogs,
because that's something that people don't realize what goes into it. And
they work hard, and there's not a lot of money for them. They're scrounging.
Obviously, powerful rescue. It's they're not profiting. That's not the goal. Mm-hmm. It's just to, if they happen to have extra money, it's like, how do I reinvest this into our rescue to make it a better rescue? Imagine if you could turn around and pay their employees, so they had employees.
Imagine if they could work with the dog rescue.
Could they help? What else could they do? The list goes on and on. So that I would definitely agree with. I think what I've learned over time was that the most valuable thing anyone has ever given me is teaching me how to do things that I can stretch further. So the amount of people that have mentored me, whether it was on purpose or not, was pretty high, and I'm really fortunate with the people I've had. So I would love to be able to find a way to mentor people that don't have that. So you don't have to give them money, but if you could pay these mentors, like handle the bill for people who are really interested in something so that they could further educate themselves and go be more successful, that would be enormous. Because sometimes we don't realize how little people have. So you hear about this great mentor and he's great and it's $200 a month. Like, you got to do that. And they're like, where would I come up with $200?
Yeah.
You don't realize how many people do not have that 200, but if they did, how much further their life could go, how much further, you don't even know how much further the world could go because they have tools that they wouldn't have had, So that would be my thing, is finding a way to educate more people on many things that they have talents in. because I'm sure that we don't know the best of everyone in anything, because there's people that don't have a chance to bring it to the table. You know?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I
think I'd you want to do things to help people that make a difference. But like you said, you know, the idea of like, do I donate? Like, I feel like this might be just cynical, but I feel like if you donated, say you donated $1 billion to cancer research, where does your money actually go?
Yeah, I would need to know. I'd need to know.
You know what I mean? Like that unknown.
I want to write individual checks for machines for.
Yeah, you don't know that. How much of this is going to like,
I had no idea, Ron,
other
that
stuff happens.
I had no idea how many of those like Susan B. Komen and all those are like they're profit organizations. Like you read the really small print and it's like 1% of the money that goes into cancer research.
Yeah. You don't want to hear
how
about
about
like
a slap in the face in that? You like donate your time and make these big races and then find out that people are just getting rich off of it.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of stuff is set up, it's a big bureaucratic administration. And there's just so much between the money and the people it's certain things are difficult that way. That's why I guess the point is I would want to concentrate on my local community.
Yeah.
So I think another one that I would want to do is I would want to, I love music, and there's actually a bit of a problem. Young people aren't learning to play instruments anymore. Young people aren't buying guitars. Young people aren't learning piano. Young people don't know how to play instruments. And funding like a musical academy or some sort of, promotion of music in the community, like that sort of stuff. I could see myself getting involved with that. And I could see myself, like I said, the dog rescues and the stuff that I really, would want to see, maximized around me. And you hope that there's a ripple effect out from your community instead of like, we talked about just giving the money to a giant, massive thing where you don't even feel the ripples. Like, but if you spend the money in your community,
that's always been an interesting thing to me. It's keeping it local, or local to you, so things that are important to you. Like I would definitely go back to where I went to high school and want to see some things better. And you know what I mean? Like not necessarily in my literal community I live in now.
I'd go to the high schools around me, do the gyms.
You want to see where it goes. Cause like I said, and before anyone shoots me down on percentages, I don't know the exact percentage, but just finding out that those companies don't, I assume when I hand like Ron $1 to give to the homeless guy outside, I assume Ron walks the dollar out and hands it to him. I'm irritated when I find out that he hands him a quarter, and I'm like, "Wait, what happened there?" He's like, "I had to walk. It's cold outside. I put my jacket on." So, but yeah, I think it's very interesting to see when you think, because, like you said, if you're not teaching people how to take it further, I mean, $1 billion does run out. So the hope is that if you can, like you said, the music stuff, I mean, that's connected to your brain and being smarter and being able to take on other things. Music's highly underrated on how it impacts everything else in your life. As you can see, I never played any instruments. It's very obvious.
No, but you like music.
Yes. I listen to Ron play music. Does that count?
I'm always suspicious of people who aren't music fans.
How could you not be?
Like you meet someone, you're like, "Hey, what do you listen to?" And they're like, "A bit of everything." They're like, "Okay, well, that's cool. I listen to a lot of stuff too, but what's your favorite stuff?" I don't know. I don't really have a favorite
whatever's
thing.
on the radio.
Like, "Oh, well, what are you listening to right now?" I just like listening to the radio. I'm like, "Okay,
I've never
well,
had a radio.
What's your favorite song?" Like, yeah,
Give me
it's
something.
one band. I just have a hard time with that.
You just found out who an axe murderer is in your gym.
I had time to think about this one now. I would I would do a lot of what I'm doing now, but it would look different. Because imagine, like, a lot of this is about education, right? And imagine what like you could do if you had, I didn't have to do any of the editing, first of all. I could have like a much better setup, right? Like I wouldn't have to think about it. I'd hire somebody to do the setup for me, do all the editing, do all the uploading, all of that. You could do like fly people in to do interviews, and then like all the way down to say like we have a guy who's really struggling, like somebody who reaches out and they're like, oh yeah, I'm in recovery but I relapse, or I was in recovery but I relapse. You could literally just reach out to that listener and be like, hey, do you want to go to rehab right now? We'll send you there. You know what I mean? Like you could literally do so much. This could turn into like, I could do a lot more with this and be able to help a lot more people. And I'd probably still coach too, but probably not as many people. And you could be really selective with the people you connected with, like really connected with, and just keep it so that it wasn't like a lot of time out of your day. You know what I mean?
How big would your audience get if you could pay 2 people to be on here so Ron and I weren't on here anymore?
I know, right?
Just had like a really good host, and second, with Ron and I are gone because you're paying someone.
Imagine like we could like if we had like all the best equipment to do the show, and it'd be fun still, right? And like we could all be like, hey, let's go fly to Thailand and meet Vigorous Steve next month, and we'll do a show with him. You know what I mean?
From his place,
that'd be fun.
All over that.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
I'm in. Let's go.
And that would be for me too, because it would be fun. But you could really focus it to help other. I think at the end of the day, we do help other people, and you could continue to push that. Yeah, you could go bigger. Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah.
Good finish, guys. Scott,
local community stuff, saving people, helping dogs,
going to Thailand. I love it.
Going to Thailand.
Definitely putting guitars in the hands of kids. Hey, kid, you don't have anything to do. You don't have any self-esteem? Come here.
Yeah.
Let's get you hooked up.
Although Perry Farrell did say that as long as girls, what did he say? As long as there's he said, no matter what, rock and roll will never die, because there's some kid in his garage right now and he's got a guitar and he knows that if he learns how to play this, he can get chicks, and his buddy has a drum set. And as long as that happens, rock and roll will never die.
Yeah.
It's valid. Totally
I absolutely love it. I'm just waiting for the swing back. Everything comes in phases.
Yeah.
So we'll be all right. Is that it, guys?
That is it. I got to go get a Little Caesars pizza now.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I know I had some yesterday, but I might look for a Little Caesars.
Thanks, guys.
Just one slice. Okay, thanks everybody. Remember, like, share, subscribe, comment, and
ring the bell.
Remember, IamMutant.com, IsoSurge, all in. Everyone should get on the gear. Remember the Think Big Bodybuilding Media Patreon for Scott, the producer, and Dusty 20. Big Ron 20. Save yourself 20% off. Thanks to the last 5-minute crew for hanging around till the bitter end. And I got to say before we go, love the shirt, Scott.
Thank you. Supporting Canada, supporting an armed Canada.
True North, strong and free.
Yes.
I just cleaned my Glock the other day.
Nice.
Because I want to take Emily shooting.
Nice.
So, yeah. Okay. Thanks, guys. Remember, it's just bodybuilding.
All right. I'll see you guys.
Thanks, buddy.
I got to eat.